All right. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So welcome back to another webinar in the Lady Leader series. That's every time so hard for me to say. But yeah, today we've got, I think, something that's going to be super applicable to so many people with the doctors that I talk to, and that is creating a ninja front office that learns how to schedule productively. And I've already gotten lots of people who have put in questions and comments, and just from my own conversations, things that I see keep popping up. And I know with, hiring right now, people having constant changes in their schedule, with holes and people, cancellations same day or no notice at all. I think everybody's just having a really tough time figuring out how can you actually still schedule productively with the climate we're in right now. So with me today, I, of course, have the lovely Ashley Hirschfield, who is here always with us. And then I have some of my ninjas, my lead ninjas in my offices, and it's Krista Butters, who is with us. And then a lot of people know Debbie Dotson, who's the practice director. She's actually subbing for our own lovely Delcy Lopez, who couldn't be with us here, at the last minute. So I'm going to first just kind of do a quick intro of them, and then we'll get started. So Debbie, a little bit about.
Well, I have been in dentistry about 25 years. I practiced hygiene for 10 of those years, and then I got into the admin side of the business. And I've been with Dr. Casmel since 2014, and it's been a fun ride.
Mm-hmm. And I am a newbie to the dental world. I've been here with Dr. Casmel and Debbie for almost 2 years.
Yeah. Feels like forever though, right?
It's a good team. It feels like forever in a good way though.
Yes. That's just what I was going to say. Yeah, Krista is a stinking rock star. She actually, a little kind of exciting thing for her is like, she moved up into the leadership track within I think she was here 18 months, and the rest of the leadership team were like, she runs with the big guns there. She's real good. So it's pretty awesome. She joined our leadership team just recently and has been such a good addition as well. So, well, before we get started, one of the first questions I thought, Ashley, that might be interesting for doctors to hear, because I know there's going to be doctors listening, but also team members, is, ladies, what are a few things that you wish that doctors would understand and know about your jobs as scheduling ninjas?
You want to go first, Krista?
Sure, yeah. I think I wish that they would help us instill the value of the treatment and the time on the schedule, and really give us the handoff to seal the deal for them and help us get the information to the patient and get them on the schedule. So this is really important. We need to get this done. They're going to come in and they're going to take care of you from here. I look forward to seeing you back. So just really getting that importance and that value in the patient, so then we can take it and just kind of get them sealed up and get them back. Love that.
And I think to follow along with that is really setting those patient expectations up for whatever treatment they have and whatever symptoms come after that. We get those questions frequently from patients, like root canals. Well, they didn't tell me this. And so then we become that person who has to kind of problem solve with the patient. And then I think also just being very clear with what you want with your schedule, what you want it to look like. Where do you want high volume patients at what time of the day, where to put emergency times, and just communicate that very clear with the team that is scheduling. Otherwise, they're just guessing as to where they think the best spot is. And then, maybe the doctor is saying, don't put that here, and just a lot of back and forth communication. And they often just don't know what to do because they haven't had that clear communication.
Oh, I love that one, because I don't know about you, Ashley. I've talked to so many doctors that will be like, well, they just have me running ragged, which makes me.
Why didn't they know? Why did they know?
Yeah. They have me running crazy. And I'm always like, well, they don't have you doing anything. You're the doctor. I'm always like, they don't have anything. They're trying to do their very best to do with what they have often. And so when I ask them, well, what does running ragged look like? And they kind of give me a brief overview of it. I'm like, great. So it sounds like you don't like this, you don't like that, and you don't like this. Well, I didn't say that. I sometimes something here, and I'm like, you're not clear. Like, I'm not even sure what you want.
Right. And it's
so,
not consistent.
Yeah.
It might be this way one time and this way another time. And it's just, it's really difficult.
Right. And I've been on, obviously I'm a doctor, so I know that sometimes getting full clarity or consistency can't always happen, but we all do know that certain procedures become pretty consistent, and you know about how long, you know, like Debbie said, do you want high value treatment more mornings? Do you want certain things like implants if you're just getting started? Do you want those right before lunch? So just in case things go south, you have a little bit of buffer time. Like we know some of the things as doctors that we're more fresh at certain times and things like that. So I think that level of clarity is huge. And I feel like Ashley, almost every webinar we do, the word clarity comes up. Am I right?
Communication, like, like, are we gonna, it's like a diamond commercial, the 4 C's of.
Yeah, I know. And I love that too. Cause yes, it is. It's like clarity is such a big deal with that. And yes, communication. But the other word that I feel like we use often, Ashley, but I am going to use it again, is I think that knowing how important a schedule is, and often, we do throw people in with no experience, onboarding correctly. Onboarding, Ashley. I think onboarding is actually such a big deal too, is picking the right person and some of the right traits for this position, recognizing what a big deal of a position it is, and then training them up well in a good onboarding process is such a big deal. Successfully hiring for that position, we have found, has come with some nuances over time. I'll let them kind of interject here about what we have found about hiring for this position and why onboarding of them is important.
Yeah, well, I think we've found that you have to have the right culture fit and the right skill set. They kind of have to go hand in hand. You can't, we've tried to do one without the other, maybe always looking for the right culture fit. But then when you don't have the skill set, and I think we learned a valuable lesson that sometimes if there's not enough potential, you're not going to get them there quickly enough, or it's more of a detriment. I think having someone that can multitask and can hustle and can keep up with the hustle and bustle that happens up front and not get stressed out and kind of just give up or flail. I think it's just, we've learned a lot of things kind of from those, those different aspects, and you can't have somebody that's just not willing to just take a step and take a stab and just try it and just put themselves out there and just jump in.
Yeah. And they've got to be able to comfortably talk to people and just have a good conversation back and forth. And they have to be able to have a good time limit on that. You can't have a 30-minute conversation with somebody if they come in and you've got other things to move on to. So you've got to be able to temper that conversation and know skillfully how to cut that off and move on to the next process. And they've got to be willing to, I think, be humble enough to take feedback. We do give lots of feedback here in our office, and it's just kind of a learning curve. And not giving them too much at once, I think, helps a ton, because there's so many tiny little things that they have to look at. So taking it in smaller chunks and then graduating them, slowly and surely onto the next process.
Yeah. I'm like, Ash, can you add anything to kind of what we discussed about how important, like, what's funny is we're talking about a scheduling ninja webinar, but what I find is, like, the topic is never fully the topic until you figure out the foundation underneath. And it's like, to have this ninja scheduling, it doesn't happen by chance. It starts with hiring correctly and onboarding well. Anything that you can add to that you can think of?
Just on that point, actually, I kind of want to ask, you guys had mentioned, that you have to have the skill set as well as the culture fit, but as we're finding, there's not a lot of skill set out there. So, like, when do you make that exception, or, how do you, because you're still going to need to hire someone
all the time. Yeah, all the time. We don't hire on dental. We don't hire on dental capabilities. We use, and I know a lot of people have heard me say, we use Criteria Corp to assess.
Oh yeah.
Do they have the basic skill set, like admin, math, verbal, those type of skill sets. And then we look at that with customer service, and it even actually can show us like how adaptive are they. As Krista was saying, like, you know, with multitasking, it's more so meaning, can they move from one task to the next task to the next task without getting flustered at the front office?
Yep.
So, you know, we utilize something like that because like Krista's a beautiful example of zero dental, but she had customer service and she had corporate experience in a different position. So that's a great question.
Well, sorry, and I didn't answer your question, but you know, I just throw questions back to you. On that note though, too, I just love Criteria Corp, and holy moly, does it just save on the time you spend? Because first of all, if people don't even want to take a skills assessment, like
That's
like
the first.
oh my gosh, the number of people anyway. And then if they're, you know, it really shows if, and like typing in this day and age, I don't think that typing is necessarily the end all be all, but I think it gives you a general idea of things, you know, like I include a typing test just because I want to know, like, do you know what a keyboard is?
Right.
Well, computer skills is a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. Is I mean, and we had a beautiful example. I mean, we couldn't have had it any better. And I know I used this when I was talking at the summit, but we hired 2 people exactly the same time. One was all core value with very low capability. The other one was high on both and customer service. Well, it proved to be exactly true. So
we have one of them.
Yes. we are with one. Yes. Yes. So and that's nothing to say that, you know, I joked with them. I said, I know this sounds crazy, but like that was a great learning experience. We learned how well it works. So
we thought we could get her up to speed, or we thought there was enough potential or enough will, and we figured out there was not.
Yeah, the test was right. So now we kind of figured out foundationally, you have to hire the right person. You have to have kind of a clear onboarding process as best as possible, and not try to overwhelm immediately all at once. But then we're kind of going to dive into a little bit of a recipe, more or less, to kind of create this fantastic schedule. And once again, because this is what I always do, is I'm like, we're not just going to dive into the block scheduling or whatever. We're going to actually start with, you have to figure out, doctors, like, what are the needs of the business? You know, financially, what's the bare bone minimum you need? What do you have to produce per day, per month, per year? Let's start there, and then figure out what can sustainable growth look like in the metrics from previous. You know, it's important for your team to understand, you know, why they're scheduling how they are. And a lot of times they have to understand where the metrics kind of came from in the first place. And so once you know the metrics, you can then set those yearly goals, break them down, like I said, into monthly goals, daily goals. And then you have at least a target to shoot for. And you know, as a doctor too, what do you want to then fill in with that schedule? Because you have to fill in the schedule based on a monetary type goal or something like that. But then also, what are your skill sets? What's your efficiencies? Because, you know, we've had now, golly, I don't know, 8, 9 doctors that have come, you know, through the offices, and most of them are still here. But that being said, the schedule for one doctor is not the schedule for the next doctor. Right. And so we'll kind of dive into that a little bit, you know, more as well. But you have to know the financial needs. You have to know the monthly, yearly, daily type goals that you're looking for. You have to know the skill sets and time efficiencies of the doctors. And then once you have all of that, then you can finally start putting together a block schedule. So the financial needs, I think that's, most doctors listening to this understand that, where to find the bare bone minimum. You know, if you don't know your numbers, if there's anybody listening, obviously there's a lot of resources on DSN. Our friend Jake Conway can help with that as well. There's lots of ways to be able to understand what your bare bone minimum is and what you need. But then you take that and then, you know, extrapolate upon that bare bone minimum and break it down, like I said, into monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals. And then you dive into the skill set and efficiencies of the doctors. I felt like you were going to say something, Ash.
Just to add on to that too, you said efficiencies, and I think it's about like as a provider knowing yourself and when you are most effective at certain procedures as well. Like if early in the morning is when you should be doing implants type thing, and intense surgeries like after you're rested, like knowing yourself and knowing where you can literally function the most efficiently is also important, although you don't get it every time. But it's just, if we're setting up an ideal scenario, let's set up an ideal scenario.
Right. Right. And I have often doctors will say, well, what I'd really love is I'd love to do all of this first thing in the morning and blah, blah, blah. Well, then I'm with you. Set intention to it. You'd be surprised if you train the patients, train the teams. This is when doctor does these procedures. I mean, I only do Invisalign on Mondays.
Yep.
They don't have people saying, well, I'd really rather see her on a Friday. Actually they might, but it's just like, I'm sure you do, but this is when she's available. So,
yeah.
It is surprising how, you really can set intention to that as well. And I think that, I think you have to recognize, like, sometimes we want to put high value procedures at certain times. And when I look at the skill sets of doctors, I have a doctor who's 1 year out. Her high value procedure looks very different than another doctor of mine who does, third molar extractions with IV sedation. Mm-hmm. That's going to be different of where, how you're going to structure that day. I have one doctor that she's very bread and butter with a few, higher value type of procedures in her toolkit. And she can run 2 columns really efficiently. And that's how she can meet her goals, where another doctor who does bigger high value things runs a single column. So that's where it's like you kind of have to set up this little third leg of the stool to ensure that, if you know how much you're wanting to do per day, you have to ensure that, the skill sets, the number of appointments, your time efficiencies can help you get there strategically. Hygienist, I will say too, as we kind of move into that, that's another part of that those scheduling blocks go for the hygienist too. So for your doctors and your hygiene, all of the same things actually apply as far as the legs of that stool, that recipe card, more or less, because your hygienists have different skill sets, right? Some of them are laser certified. Some are hopefully becoming laser certified and things like that. But they have different skill sets. They have different efficiencies. They have sometimes even different things that they love to do. Like some get into more of sleep apnea. Some, move into a different area of dentistry that they become more high value with certain things. So I think that those block schedules are going to look different sometimes per doctor, sometimes even per hygienist, but it's important that all of these things are figured out before you create and craft that schedule. But I'm going to let you guys kind of jump in with why those 3 things are so important before we set up that schedule.
Yeah, well, I think, in our office, we make sure that our providers know what their hourly production is, what their 10-minute production goal is, so that they can, start to, if they're not efficient with it now, then they work to become efficient with it. Because if we're scheduling, so many appointments and we're not meeting that hourly or 10-minute goal, well, then there's not much that the scheduling team can do to help get them to goals. So that too is a little bit of a frustration. And I know sometimes I'm not a dentist, so, sometimes they just have to have that much time. Sure. But, if they're not going to work on those efficiencies, then really our hands are tied. We're a little bit handcuffed. Making sure that we have enough rocks in the schedule, and, we're not having a $10,000 day and a $2,000 day. It's a little bit more consistent. Not having a lot of no production things on the schedule, lots of little bitty appointments makes for a non-efficient schedule, and it's crazy on everybody in the team. So
you're talking about like the rocks, gravel, sand, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, limiting your crown seats, for that day, and teaching your team to watch for those things too. Yeah, in our office, many people will be doing the scheduling, so we all know to watch for those things to keep a productive schedule.
Yeah. I mean, I think you covered most of it. I think too, just doing your preparation in advance, like making sure there's no surprises the day of, or looking for roadblocks well in advance. Front office is preparing their schedule a week in advance. Doctors are reviewing their schedule a week in advance, night before, everyone's kind of doing that. So making sure that there's no surprises the day of the appointment, and that we're not going to run into, well, this is going to run 20 minutes late. Now it's the day of, and now we're just kind of in this mess. Or
saw it coming. You knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's been on the schedule.
Yeah.
Minimal.
So
Yeah.
really training, and that's another thing I wish doctors knew, is just like really look at that and really plan ahead and prevent that. Just control what you can control, because there's always going to be a variable. But
I love that.
There's
I love
nothing worse than going into that morning huddle and we're going to have to call this patient and reschedule because their crown isn't here, or whatever. It doesn't matter the reason. That's just too late to do anything about it. And so I will teach our team that it's not going to be the front office that is going to be calling that patient. It's going to either be the provider or hygienist or assistant to contact that patient, because that patient probably is unhappy and
they need to feel the pain sometimes to learn. You always have a saying like that hurt.
For sure. I want to add too, you guys had mentioned, like these docs who are maybe not as efficient as they can be. I'm listening to Dr. Nicholas all the time, and he's the efficient dentist, but coach. But he's always telling people to just time yourself. You're going to,
yes,
even if it's nobody else is seeing your time, even if it's just you're going to start getting faster just by timing yourself. Like it goes so
absolutely.
Yeah.
I can 100% attest to that when I did it myself. And what's funny is the assistant who timed me and we did that exercise, she's now the new dentist in one of my offices. So she times herself, and Erin Nicholas, you are 100% correct. It does. She naturally became faster when she started actually recording the times. But that's just it, is, like we said, you have to know the financial goals. You have to set, like we do in our office. I know we sound slightly insane, but we have, we are for sure. But we have
webinars, 2 different webinars.
I know. We'll do the crazy one later. We'll do an intervention. But we do have daily. We do have even hourly. And the reason being is that helps doctors think to themselves, hey, I have a second appointment that I need to get him scheduled for. I know the production on this is $400. Do I want an hour? Do I think I could do it in 40? But if they don't even know those numbers, then they can't even help themselves at all. And then they throw a timeout, they give it to the scheduling people to say, schedule that for this amount of time, without ever really putting all of it together that they can do that for you. The schedulers will do that for you, but you're setting yourself up for a really non-productive day and you didn't even realize it. So that's so much of why, like I said, having all of those different parts of the recipe is really important. And as your skill sets grow, as you bring on potentially more high value stuff, it's the recipe card, of that block scheduling should change actually with it, to accommodate.
And if they're not willing to look at those procedure times, it often then becomes like, why aren't they getting me to go? Well, I'm doing what you told me to do.
Right.
Yeah. So and one thing I want to say is, like, I get a lot of questions about, well, how do you create, like, what does a block scheduling even look like? And what I would say is, like, of course, I'm going to say it 14 million times, do the other 3 things first. Then when you're creating the block scheduling, like, say, for us, we have new patient blocks on the schedule. We do have perio blocks that are on the schedule. We do have kind of the high value rock appointments pre-scheduled. We have all of that pre-scheduled, but it was based on recognizing I'm going to use new patients as the example. If, like, one of our offices, we get between 50 and 60 new patients a month. Well, knowing that tends to be kind of our sweet spot, we just divide that up by 12, and that's how many new patient blocks we put, and we spread them out amongst the hygienist. But I have offices who are like, well, we're only getting 20 or whatever, well, if you want to do more, then say, if I want to do 10% more new patients, then you add 4 more 10% of 20, you have 4 more to that, and you're going to have 24 new patient blocks. But sometimes what I think is, interesting is docs will just like throw in new patient blocks, or they'll tell their schedules, throw them in. Well, it's pretty haphazard with like, they'll throw in like 10 new patient blocks. And then they're like, we can't get them in. Well, you have to have a little bit of a method to it. And then that goes for your, perio blocks and things like that. Actually look at how much peri are you currently doing? How much are you treatment planning? How much is scheduled out? And then look at that and use that as your baseline. And if you want to grow it, like I said, I would suggest adding 10%. You'll be surprised, by the way, how often you'll fill it like that just because you put them in there. That's what's crazy.
That intention, right? Like just be intentional.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to be really disciplined to not schedule over those blocks. You kind of have to have a time limit on when you can release those blocks. And we do it in our schedule like you can schedule over them, because what happens is somebody if you remove that block, then you have no block. So we keep the block on there. So if somebody falls off, you still have the same block.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So, and then, the final part of this is you've now gotten all this beautiful recipe. You've got these beautiful block schedules in there. Yes. Honor the blocks, keep the boundaries until your time limit for sure. Or Debbie will come after you. And then,
With my knife.
Like yeah.
Some team members are just missing. No, I'm kidding. No, gee whiz, we sound awful.
Is an eagle.
Anyway. Sweet, huh?
Yeah, watch out.
But no, so the final piece is you have to ensure that there's one person who owns each provider, depending on the size of the office. Somebody's got to own that person's schedule. So for us, it's somebody owns the hygiene one, somebody owns the doctors. And if you have, multiple providers, you figure out who it is who owns these. But the problem is sometimes nobody owns anything. So everybody's responsible for nothing. And so nobody's reactivating. Nobody's noticing when that hole forms. And I hear that. I don't know about you, Ash. I hear that all the time. Oh my gosh, all these holes are showing up and nobody's doing anything.
Why didn't anyone
anyone do it? Yes.
Yeah. But with that, you don't want to you want a really close-knit, cohesive front office team. Like if somebody's responsible for hygiene and they fall off, they're pretty well talking to each other and bouncing ideas off all through it. You don't want a team member that says, well, that's Delsey's schedule. Good luck.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
Right.
So our team really, even though one person is responsible for it, they work so well together.
And that includes the providers themselves.
Yes.
I mean, we say nobody will care about the schedule as much as the provider should. But that being said too, like one person has to own it so that when the holes form, Krista knows, oh, I'm on it. And then they'll see another hole form and in the hygiene schedule, hey, Delsey, are you on it? Hey, Nicole, like,
at the very least, they're like rallying the team, like one that, like ringing the bell that something's wrong.
Absolutely. And that actually, thank you for saying that. That brings up a great point of, you're exactly right. When something happens same day, there has to be plans involved, which we're going to kind of dive into, which kind of is a lovely segue. So that's kind of the recipe, and the final piece is owning it. But there are things that have huge effects on even those best laid plans. Because let's be honest, like Krista said, that's if we can control everything we can control right there, right? The recipe card is we put in every bit of control we can think of for the most part. But, confirmations, what we say and what we don't say, cancellations, those can have a huge effect. I'm not saying we have perfect verbiage. I'm saying we work through all the time what's verbiage that seems to help the most. I'll let them kind of dive into that. So
we're constantly tweaking it and reassessing, but just setting the value from the get-go, from the very first interaction with the patient. So even when I have a new patient on the phone, I do educate them on our 48-hour confirmation policy or cancellation policy. So I go through all the questions with them and I'm like, okay, we will be reaching out to confirm your appointment 48 hours in advance. we will reach out until you confirm. And we do typically remove those appointments from the schedule if we don't get a confirmation. So I do educate them from the beginning. And then even when they're in the office and we're scheduling 6-month recare or we're scheduling their treatment appointment, we always say it with value. We don't just say, oh, if it doesn't work, just call us and we'll just figure it out. We're like, okay, I have this day and this time. Is that, and I'm going to reserve this for you. And just, it's really intentional and really, I make it really important to them because I don't want them to think that we're wide open and they can just call and get back in, which if they call and cancel, we always say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What's going on? And then you just kind of let them talk. And sometimes, oh, well, this meeting got changed. And you're like, well, so-and-so just had a change this afternoon. Would that work better for you? Or lately with, like COVID stuff, it's talking through that. Like, well, I have a runny nose. Do you still want me in there? And just talking through a lot of those things and just asking that question. And sometimes we can make it work. And even by telling them, I'm so sorry, that your favorite hygienist is booking out until January right now. Is there any way you can get here? We do have that 48-hour cancellation policy, and it's really hard to fill that last minute opening. And, we really rely on you to get here, so we're constantly looking at it. And we have verbiage that every team member uses. We don't want to sound like robots, but we want to make sure that everybody is using the same verbiage and instilling the same value. And we talk about it in meetings, like doctors, DAs, front office, across the board. Everyone knows, like, we don't just let somebody cancel. we make them wait, and that's the thing too. If they cancel and there's an opening tomorrow, I'm going to make them wait 2 weeks,
Yeah. I absolutely, like, sometimes I just look at my own team members and I'm like, you're so great. like, just good job. That's right. Like, it's so lovely when you hear like what we talk about. It's so used, and then they actually take it and they like even make it better. But I love so much of what she said, because one thing that we learned over time is, like, often I hear people, and Debbie and I have heard conversations of, like, they call to say, hey, I'm going to need to change that appointment, and I've literally heard the words that make my skin crawl. No problem. When would you like to get back in?
Yes.
I'm like, what are you saying? No problem.
Yeah. So Delcy, who came to us, pretty fresh, didn't have much dental experience. She really is our scheduling ninja. You're missing her today. So yes, when she came, I would often hear her, oh, that's not a problem.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and get you rescheduled. And then at one time she hung up the phone and I said, Delcy, that is a problem.
Yeah.
It's your problem now. So she really has had to change that verbiage. And she's a rock star at it now.
And what's crazy is it's funny how, like Krista said, all they ask now is, tell me what's going on. That little tiny phrase, if I could tell doctors, switch it to tell me what's going on. I have to change this meeting. We hear often, well, I have my baby. We're like, awesome. We can't wait to meet your baby. We're like, great. If you're comfortable, we've got a bunch of moms. We can't wait to meet your baby here. We're gonna, love on that baby. And when they say, well, I have my 2 little kids, great. Awesome. We have a little movie room, or we have a kids room, or if you don't have that availability, we're going to put them in the room with you, and we have iPads and TVs. Yeah. Like, sometimes they don't know what the possibilities are. So I love those words of, like, tell me what's going on.
Not a lot of places that would even ask that, or, like, it's like kind of a person to person. I see it in 2 ways, right? So part of me is like, oh, that's like, it's like caring. And of course you do care. And then it kind of reminds me also of the negotiation tactics where it's like the first person to talk loses,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'll get you in here with whatever you're about to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ninja. Yeah, that is the ninja skills. Yes. But yeah, the verbiage is so important. And like Krista said, like, we are big, and I don't want to be flooded with emails of like right or wrong. I don't think there's right or wrong. I think there's what works for us. And what we have found is, even if they cancel, and they cancel for, we all know the reasons that somebody's a repeat offender. They want to get on the powder, and they're like, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel, instead of keeping that hygiene appointment that everybody in this world needs right now, it feels like. like Krista said, if we get a next day opening, even with the priority list, which we're going to get into, we're not going to put that person right there. We're going to say, oh gosh, is there any way, we'll do all of our stuff. If they say, no, I'm going to get on the hill and have some fun, then we'll say, okay, we'll let you know when the next availability, which is in 6 months for your cleaning for real. And then, we'll put you on the priority list and let you know. But we honor that so that our patients do recognize the value, for sure. People ask all the time if we charge a cancellation fee, and I've tried all different ways. For me, I would always rather go with the carrot than the stick. So I'd always rather go with, is there any way, value. Gosh, we hate to see, no problem. If you're making that choice, the next time we have is blank. I feel like scheduling them out, so far in advance, that's enough for me for that sake. And we don't tend to have, we track our cancellation rates. So we have found that this system has made it to where we don't have the bookkeeping aspect of collecting all those cancellation rates and following up and mad patients because of them and sending out statements for them. And our cancellation rate still ends up staying, for the most part, I would say it's 8%, I think. Yeah. So,
well, we just try to train them on just train them that they might think about it next time.
Right. Yeah.
I will say, I missed a dog grooming appointment, and they were like, well, it's $50 for your next appointment. And then I found another dog groomer. So
yeah.
I was a bad example. Like, I am one of those terrible people, but at the same time, I was like, I'm gonna find someone else. So I think, and I'm kind of with you, somewhere like that. Like, how can we make this a positive thing, and tell us more about that, and what's going on? I think that's in my experience, a better way to go.
Right. Well, we have a lot of patients that have been coming for almost, for as long as Dr. Casnell's been here, and they know us, and it's a small community. So we can't just say, oh, sorry, because they will go,
start doing that.
Care about them. Yeah.
Yeah. It does. And then, like I said, what we found, and this started when Debbie and I were like 8 years ago or whatever, when we were working together, that we realized that truly it became kind of a bookkeeping difficulty. We were seriously finding our AR was growing sometimes from these. And I was like, which leads to say, what's wrong with your cancellation and your confirmation policy, really? There were so many things that it was it just didn't work for us. But I tell people, you do know what works for you. And I don't think that one size fits all, for sure. I say that 100%. Different demographics, different locations. I totally get it. But more than anything, if you're tracking your cancellation rates, you're seeing it, you'll find out, like I said, if there's a problem or if you need to do something different. So things that derail that productive schedule, that recipe you came up with, are confirmations and cancellations. We definitely utilize, people can use Flex, Modento, Facebook, send out blasts. One thing I will say is priority lists, as I alluded to, is really a huge thing. And we call them priority lists for sure. Krista, I feel like you were going to dive into,
Yeah. So we use the ASAP list in Open Dental. So it's kind of up towards the top left under the list option. And we try to ask almost every single patient, especially if they're scheduled a week or two out for treatment, and then when people call and they do have to cancel or change their hygiene appointment and they're going to be out past their recall date, we ask every patient if we can add them to that ASAP list. And we have a quick note that we insert into that appointment, and we ask very specific questions. What days work better for you? What times? Which provider? How would you like us to contact you? And then we make sure we have all that information in the appointment. So then when we have a cancellation on a Tuesday at 12 o'clock, we know which patients want the Tuesday at 12 o'clock. Instead of calling 50 patients and getting 50 no's, we call 10 and we get, we call 5 and we get our yeses. And so just really utilizing that list, but really asking every patient.
Yes.
Every time. Can I call you? Do you want me to call you if something becomes available? When they're upset when they cancel, I can't get in for 6 months, or I'm going to be way past due. I do have a priority list I can add you to, and this will be your placeholder. We'll work on getting you in sooner. So it's super beneficial.
And I think now in this climate, really educating your patients that all dental offices are experiencing shortage of hygienists, and just educating your patients, what's happening, why we're not able to schedule you quickly.
Yeah.
And then they're usually understanding of that. And we definitely use the priority list. That's probably our main source, but also we can utilize blocks on the schedule. So if a patient needs in tomorrow, we can place a block on the schedule. You can color code those blocks, patient requests this day, and put those specific blocks in. And that usually will go to that first if there's a block, because that's almost a guarantee that you can get them in if something falls off.
Yeah. Those are awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll kind of dive into that in just a bit too, but utilizing your own schedule really well as far as utilizing everything Open Dental has to offer. Krista, I'll let her go into this in a bit, but like you can get so much accomplished just on that schedule to fill same day cancellations with just how you utilize it. But the one thing too is another thing that can derail a really, really productive schedule is not having providers, and we've alluded to this, not having providers prepared for the day. Not having everybody coming to the morning huddle, really knowing what's going on that day. And we've even learned during the pandemic, and this is something I'd really love to kind of impress upon people who are listening, like we can't kind of just bury our heads in the sand with all of the cancellations and all of that. And I see sometimes people kind of just throw their hands up and they're like, well, I guess just make a better downtime list. Well, yes, that's great. We should have better downtime lists, but there's a lot of things that really, if we just come prepared, we can actually have contingency plans to fill 75, 80, they fill sometimes 100% of schedules that truly have literally 100% changed and flipped. So I think that people have to come knowing what their days are, and then we utilize our schedules. Even every single team member comes into that day ready with, here's people who are already in the schedule who either have family members that are past due, or if they're in the treatment rooms, the assistants will say they're due for hygiene now. They put those blocks on the schedule. So somewhere on their column, you'll see, here's the 3 people in Hannah's column that are due right now for hygiene, or are due right now for more treatment or whatever. So I think coming prepared with, hey guys, if anything happens today, every single person knows an opportunity to try to get somebody in. We also utilize, for us, it's Blue Note. They blast out, hey guys, Dr. Mel has a cancellation at 3:00. Everybody be aware, all hygienists, if you have any same day treatment. And that's just known in our office. So I think some of those ways can be really effective. Just being more prepared during those morning huddles, I think. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that really does work. I mean, it just happened the other day where Amy had a patient, and at 4:00, it was 4:00, literally, Dr. Alber's patient canceled, and we did we just moved that patient right over and out to for your providers and assistant to really come up with a system to be.
Ashley? Did I lock up?
Oh,
She did. Oh,
did I lock up or you?
It's all me.
Okay. That's good. Well, I was like, did you have anything to add to that with the preparedness, any of that stuff?
I didn't get the chance to hear what she said, so not at this time.
I can't repeat it.
Oh, you're good. One tiny question was, you guys had mentioned Blue Note. What's Blue Note?
Well, so we've tried everything as far as once we got into a much bigger office, and we have 12 ops in one, 10 in the other. It's just a big space with lots of providers. The headsets got really difficult for us. I love headsets. As we grew and expanded, it got to be a lot, right? Like it was just so much. So we now do Blue Note, which is just installed in the computer. And I think that's worked the best for us, but we even had to be really diligent about how we used it. But it allows to say when patients arrive, when a treatment plan's ready. It's just your inner office communication system. And you can pick exactly what rooms it goes to, what providers it goes to.
What sounds?
Yeah, and it's audible too. So for people who are in there, you can actually hear the chiming happen, and it has different chimes for different providers. So yeah. So that's worked better for us. But I will tell you, I know people use Slack, in office. People use, all sorts of, I think people use the Open Dental stuff. Whatever works, but that's just the one that we use. But yeah, I mean, those are some things that can derail even the best laid plans, the best schedules. And I think the one that I see probably affecting offices the most right now is not coming together as a team in that morning huddle to just expect, like we were joking, like expect it to derail during this climate. Expect it to do that and come ready with plans versus crossing our fingers that nobody changes and everybody stays on. And then when they don't, well, I guess go have a donut. Like for me, that just makes me like, no, like let's figure something out. And everybody needs hygiene appointments right now. So it's just being more intentional once again, for sure. Well, and I told the team that, we have other offices that come to visit us sometimes, and we'll have people bring front office people and they'll kind of hang out and watch the systems. And I said, what do you guys find that what we do or how we utilize Open Dental or anything like that? What are some of the biggest things that people have said maybe they didn't realize? Because maybe it would be beneficial for everybody listening to know. So,
yeah, I think something that people really appreciate is you can look at our schedule and get a really good idea really quickly about what the day is going to look like. We have a color system for our appointments as far as if they're cash pay, if they're insurance, if their insurance has been verified, if they have been verified but they're maxed out, if they have outstanding treatment, if we need to collect insurance information from them, or if they're on our in-house savings plan and we need to renew that. So anybody can hop in to check in and they can see what the patient needs. Also the blockouts of who needs hygiene. We also were doing blockouts of who's not confirmed for a while, just different things. So you can just sit down and you can see the schedule really quickly, what your day is going to look like or what you need to focus on. And that's done a week in advance and then it's checked a day in advance too. So yeah.
And that's something that I so have appreciated when working with Debbie is, as we've kind of grown together, like she was really the first one I had ever seen have that level of preparedness the full week ahead of time, which my brain works better with. Like I was like that in the back. That's always how I wanted it done in the back. But the way she kind of has now kind of taught our whole front office teams of like, this is what we want in the front. We want that level of preparedness week after week after week. So we're not running into the days reactive the whole time. And then like Krista said, like they do such a beautiful job. The more they learn about Open Dental, the more they utilize the color coding to make it to where the whole team, like I said, can see at a glance just by looking at it. And I'm talking, we have lots of columns. They can see every single patient's story almost at a glance. And I think that's been huge. So
like I can open up a schedule and quickly look and panic or quickly look and
okay, that one's ready. Yeah.
And then less is missed. Like you miss less, like you collect on everybody. You don't like it's more, everyone sees it. So they know like we need to get this fee or we need to renew this or it just makes it easier. It's global. Everyone can have a part in it.
Sure. And it works for, if I'm filling in for somebody, I can actually go in and when the patient comes in, I can just quickly scroll over, Bob, do the niceties and all that. We're going to go ahead and collect $230 from you today. We'll go ahead and get that taken care of. Or, Sarah, it looks like we're going to do 3 payments for you today. Let's go ahead and we are ready. We know what that patient is coming in for and what we need to say to that patient.
Yeah. Which helps so much while you're training, front office people for them to learn how to be that proactive, preparatory type team versus reactive all the time.
Well, and I will say one thing, like being new, it helped me feel more confident more quickly because I knew exactly what was needed of that patient instead of looking in the account and trying to figure it out with insurance payments and trying to learn insurance. And it just eliminated a lot of guessing and I was able to be more confident more quickly with the patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, I think that all of that level of preparation, like I said, is so helpful. I think changing verbiage with cancellations and confirmations, all of that is so helpful. I wanted to real quick say, because it literally just happened right before this, that we were sitting as a front office meeting and we kind of got together and we were looking at, because we were once again working on, okay, projections, where are we going? You know, kind of let's think through front office people, who onboarding training. We were going through all the things that we're talking about right now. And one of the things that, you know, our billing department kind of brought to the table was, and if this is helpful, hopefully to other offices, is she said, you know, especially in this climate, what's happening is patients sometimes are scheduling their appointments, whether it's online or by phone, and we're not getting the insurance information. We're not getting it. We're not getting it. We're not getting it. And either they come in and then we do the appointment and then find out they were out of network and all of this, or they come in, they don't have it, or we get it to, I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why, you know, things like that happen. Well, what happens often too is if things are lost in communication, they cancel the appointment. And so we're left the same day with cancellations that really, if we think about it, could have been prevented. So I know for us, we kind of reestablished, I mean, literally just a bit ago, about the verbiage that we're going to start using with patients, of being able to say, hey, you know, as you're filling out that new patient intake form, they circle, they have insurance. Great. We can't wait to see. We're going to reserve that time for you. We're going to put your name on it. And by the end of the day, we just need copies of the card or your subscriber, that information. Here's my personal email. Here's my personal, you know, text number for you to text it to. We'll reserve it to the end of the day. Then at the end of the day, if we aren't getting that insurance information, then whoever's responsible for that column gets to say, hey, I didn't see your information. No problem. I'm going to release that appointment. So no appointment is scheduled. Let me know the minute you have it and we'll get you back on the schedule. But we decided that the little bit of time that we spend in doing some of that, we literally were like, how long will that take, that process? Versus
trying to call and figure out and
the lost production of a same day 5 minute before cancellation. Or I said, or even worse for me, I find too, is you get them in the schedule, they have the new patient experience, and then nothing was covered. And my poor billing department gets to go, hey, you owe us $427. Whoops, you know? So that's some of the verbiage that I know for us during this climate. We're like, we want to even switch that. So I think working on all of that helps to keep a really good, productive schedule as well. So, you know, kind of to reiterate, because I love to kind of wrap things all up in a bow for everybody when I get done. But the final review of like creating a ninja scheduling team is doctors, first and foremost, you really have to have all the different parts of, you have to know the needs of the business. You have to set the numbers yearly, monthly, daily. If you want to be like crazy like us a little bit, we like to see even hourly, even 10 minutes to be honest. We do. And then you set the block scheduling according to those goals and based on the skill sets and time efficiencies of the doctors and hygienists. One person has to some degree, own it. When those holes form, when things are happening, one person's going to be on it. There's not multiple people waiting on multiple people. Ensure that you really, I so love what Krista said, like control the things you can control. And that is strong confirmation, strong cancellation verbiage, and then contingency plans. Have all of that even kind of set up ahead of time, and then use your morning huddles to bring it all together. That team that's sitting at that table should be intentional and proactive, because it's going to derail. Like, just face it, it's going to. And then reassess, track the numbers. They're going to show you if what you're doing is working or not with that. So what'd you say, Ashley?
Embrace it, because it's going to happen. Like the only thing guaranteed is change, right? So just, you know, the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So just plan ahead for those changes, even that you know are coming. And it just makes everyone's life so much easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. So hopefully, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we kind of didn't cover, but Ash, anything else that you can think of and what we discussed with?
I mean, I think, with regards to wrapping everything in a bow, it's what we talk about all the time. And it's just with regards to, the amount of time that you put into these systems ahead of time. Like, it seems like a lot. It seems like it's a daunting task, but man, is it going to save you in the long run? And it's just worth that investment. And it's worth that, just taking the time to set up these systems and getting your team on board and those types of things. Like, it's just so worth it for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I joke with them all the time. I think sometimes people are like, oh, that's brilliant. I'm like, it's not brilliant. It's intentionality. Day after day, week after week, month after month. That's all it is like, yes, I work with the most amazingly smart women, and I choose to just surround myself by the most amazing women. But that being said too, even the best of the best, if there's not intentionality and consistency, it doesn't actually matter.
That's what makes them the best of the best, though, right? It's not like that's the difference.
Yeah. And so that's for creating those ninja scheduling teams. I hope too, I loved even in the beginning, how hard it is to have that really productive schedule. Ninja scheduling teams don't just happen. Once again, it's kind of a methodical, intentional system to create it to happen. So yeah. Anything else, ladies?
I'm such a proponent of preparation. That's just my personality. I love to be prepared. And, often teams will say, well, that's so much work, on the front end. Well, you almost have to shift your mindset to, yes, we're going to move the workload from before the 8 ball to behind the 8 ball. And you're creating such a better experience for not only your team, but your patients, and minimizing that reaction and versus that workload behind here and doing damage control at that point.
Yeah. Well, and that damage control, the thing is the wake of the damage control goes far beyond the schedulers. That's the thing, is that damage control goes to bad patient reviews. It goes to often putting out the people on the hygiene team, or putting out the people on, the doctor's side. And then the poor billers as well. I think the billing department gets a lot of that load too. And then the schedulers themselves pay the consequence of having to reschedule. There's so many consequences of just that ounce of preparation on the front end. So I think that's part of where hiring the right person with that right fit is so important as well. So, well, Ash, thank you so much. I know you're skedaddling, aren't you?
Yeah.
On a plane.
We just hop on a plane. Yep. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. And
thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Your input. I know we appreciate it. And until next time.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.